All right, we are live. Just wanted to make sure. Sometimes it doesn't come online immediately. So 2019, this is when I'm doing the book review. I don't know when you're viewing this, 2020, 2021, 2052. I have no idea. However, I rarely say this about any book because after 10 years, 11 years of personal development, and hundreds of books. I think I've bought over 500 on Amazon alone, and then that's not including audiobooks, that's not including Kindle, and that's not even including just picking it up in stores, which is what I had to do before there's Amazon. Obviously, and obviously gifting, whatever. So let's just put it at 800, 900 books. Rarely do you kind of see a theme, okay? So before we get into it and why I actually say this is one of the top books of 2019 or the top book of 2019, which I've already read, I have a bunch of them around right here. I have Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins, which was 2018, Raise Your Game. This was not good, don't recommend that because the reviews on Amazon are a little alter ego. There's always, a blue screen behind me, so that's why it's a little wacky, but that's alter ego. I'll do my own review on that later. What I'm getting at is there's a theme in most of these books, and a lot of the books, and the one that really comes to mind is Mel Robbins' The 5-Second Rule, or I think it's called The 5-Second Rule. And essentially what you're doing is writing a really long essay, except you extend it for 220 pages, okay? Perfect example is Mel Robbins. Like, she did a TED Talk, and then she could have written an essay, but obviously the book is better because it extends over 220 pages. You can now buy it. She's known for it. It's a bestseller, blah, 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 blah. Nothing on Mel. It's just, it could have been 100 pages. It could have been 80 pages, max 50. It could have been an ebook. But in a book like this, when you're looking at almost 326 pages, you start thinking, okay, how much of this is actually going to be usable? And the reason I'm saying that is that there is only a finite amount of time, which you obviously understand, and there's only a finite amount of actual information that you should actually consume. Okay, so I'm not talking about social media and everything else. I'm saying all this because the power of agency literally is a topic I have never heard before. Okay, I've never heard of agency. I've heard of agency in real estate. There's the agency disclosure, but there's never, and I've never heard of this through any of the books. And then Brian Johnson on optimize.me, highly recommend you check him out. He brought this up a couple of times. And essentially, this is exactly what I've been saying for probably 3 months every single day, which is we already know we have a finite amount of time, we have a finite amount of attention. We can only put our attention on one thing at a time per, obviously, The One Thing by Gary Keller. Highly recommend you check that out. Or, Eat That Frog by Brian Tracy. There's a ton of books on it. And then essentially you have to narrow it down, what am I going to do in this very moment, okay? And that's agency. Agency is your ability to actively create your life, not based on what happens, but what your response is to what happens. So your response to a person dying is you go into grief and you think about it every single day of your life, and you go to your deathbed and you say, I can't believe this happened to me. This was my spouse, or this was my partner, this was my son, this was my husband, this was my something. And you go your whole life just living in this sorrow. There's other people that have celebrated. The Irish, I'm Irish, we celebrate. Obviously, yes, there's mourning, but we celebrate the life. Thank you for sharing the moments, okay? So the same thing happened. It's really the response to it. A bankruptcy happens. Health concern, the market isn't in your favor, someone says no, someone breaks up with you, you lose your job, you don't get the promotion, you have a bad credit score and your rate or your interest rate on your mortgage or your car loan is higher than other people, you have student loans. So essentially there's 7 things that he talks about, and I'll get into this, and this is the basis of the book, which I'm about to read. I have notes on the computer screen right here, which essentially was on my Instagram post, what I'm about to read, but it's better for me to articulate it via a video. So first is, we exist in a constant state of worry and anxiety that we're not doing everything we're supposed to be doing. Okay, so that's number one, is that we're comparing ourselves to other people on social media. We're seeing people with more followers, they're better looking, they have a better life, they're going on vacation more, their spouse is amazing, my friend just got married and had kids, and I want to get married and have kids. That person got promoted, they're making more money. That person just bought a house. We are in a constant state. Think about this. We never were able to actually compare ourselves ever, except for when we read it in the news, we heard it in person, or we saw it on TV, or obviously the radio. But now we can follow anyone, our friends, our cousins, our family members. They just ran 5 miles, they just ran 20 miles. So we're in this constant state of, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy enough. And then through that, that creates a feedback loop that's negative, that gets into your brain, okay? Regardless of what you have right now. Okay, you're always comparing it to something that you don't have. You have fresh water, you have shelter, you have clothing, you have food, you have everything that you need for survival. You literally have everything. We're not grateful at that. We're not grateful at how far humanity has come to conquer disease and health and just the way of life, the ease of way of life. We're always saying, well, that person just bought a bigger house or a nicer car. So we're in this constant state of a negative feedback loop. And I'm prepping the whole book right now. So essentially we get anxious. We have this anxiousness then leads into our inability to get things done. Okay, so because we're comparing ourselves to other people, because we're anxious, that actually hinders our ability to do what we want to do. Okay, so that then grows and multiplies, and then the list of to-dos. That person has a better body. That person has wealth. That person has a better relationship. So now that's 3 massive areas: your expenses, your relationships, and your body. Okay, and you say this is, and then you start going back, and then the feedback loop gets even worse. And then you say, "Oh my God, this is overwhelming." And then you just start doing what I'm doing, but it's in your brain, and it's just constantly that buzz, or as someone else said that I saw on YouTube, a poison drip. It's just dripping. It's just a faucet that you can't turn off. So essentially, that then leads into distractions: Facebook, Netflix, alcohol, food, boredom, all these things that we actually are putting our attention on that we should not be putting our attention on, which feeds this whole comparison model, which then loops back to the beginning, which is, I'm not good enough, I'm anxious, I'm overwhelmed, there's so many areas to change, let me distract myself. Dun, 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 dun. And then day over day, you keep on distracting yourselves, and then decisions need to be made. What should I do about my job? Where should I go on my summer vacation? What should I do about my kids? Or even the smallest thing is, what should I even do for dinner tonight? Okay? And we can't seem to figure it out, because when you are in a constant state of overwhelm and anxiety, and your mind is just, that you don't see a pathway forward, when there's negative, just a thought loop, and there's barriers in your way, you can't even make simple decisions on what you like or what you don't like. So yesterday I talked about self-awareness, and this book, essentially, as I'm talking this out, is the reason that most people don't have self-awareness, is because they're in this loop of, I just did a 5-mile run. It's not where I want it to be because Bob did it faster, or Susie did a longer run. I look at it and I say, okay, great. I did a 5-mile run. It wasn't as good as what I wanted it to do. I was talking to a girl today that could run a 7-minute mile for like 10 miles. Okay, that's 1 minute faster. 1 minute per mile faster than me. That's insane. She's a lot faster than me. I didn't look at her and say, I am envy of you. I looked at her and I'm like, what do I need to do to get to that? What is my nutrition? What is my regimen? What is my form? What do I have to do to get to that level of actually being at a 7-minute pace instead of an 8-minute pace? All right, so moving on, let's go down the top 4 that he says why this is happening. Number 1 is always on technology. Always on technology. So always on technology is pretty straightforward. iPad, laptops, cell phone, Alexa, TV, desktop computers. You just always have something in front of you. Your phone, I didn't even mention that. Your Kindle, music in your ears. There's just always something. I'm in New York City. There's always an advertisement right in your face. There's always just a buzz of something, okay? So that's always on technology. Number 2 is loss of human connectedness. Can't even say that. Loss of human connectedness. So essentially, it's also straightforward, which is we're not having in-person interactions, okay? You can't FaceTime your way out of social anxiety, okay? You can't lose your ability to connect with someone or you can lose someone that you're really connected with by only texting, by only following them on social, by only doing email or, FaceTime. In FaceTime by Apple, not actual FaceTime. FaceTime is everything. Less physical movement, that's straightforward. That's gonna be the future. The future is going to be physical and mental, and that's it, okay? Before it was disease and shelter and war and famine and all that. We've conquered that. Now it's, you gotta move, but the thing is you have to actually actively move, and then on top of that, the last thing is you're always working, all right? So that's why I leave my phone at work. And actually one thing that I didn't put in here, which is that the loss of agency, so this is the definition they go by, the loss of agency is the increasing number of people who have lost their ability to direct their lives. Let me repeat that. The loss of agency is the increasing number of people who have lost their ability to direct their lives. They are at the whim of their boss, their parents, their friends, social media, society, government. They're at the whim of them. They feel, and then they go on and they say agency is active, not passive. Okay, so he gives 7 things that you should be doing. Number 1 is that you have to control stimulus. All the stimulus in your life. You have to, stimuli is the best way to say. So lose the phone, limit social media, take notes by hand, embrace boredom. Those are the top that he says to do. Embrace boredom is essentially all of that. We don't need everything on. We have to control where our mental and our willpower is focused to. Number 2 is move. This is very interesting. Obviously, this is physical movement. This is standing. I'm standing right now. I have a standing desk. I do at least 10 is minimum. I do 12 to 18,000 steps every single day. Sometimes 20,000 steps in a day. That's a lot. You don't have to go that high, but at least do 8,000, 9,000, something around there. With move, he says, the reason it feels so good is that we get our blood pumping and makes our brain function at our best. So it's actually, yes, it's obviously the feel-good hormones that go throughout our body, rushes our body, but on top of that, it actually makes our brain perform better. When our brain performs better, we're able to make better decisions. We feel better about those decisions. We're taking agency, we're controlling agency because we're an active participant instead of a passive someone that's taking in life. Number 3, associate selectively. This is obviously the people of who you actually interact with. If the bulk of your socializing is done through social media, you will you will have diminished agency. If the bulk of your socializing is done through social media, you will have diminished agency. Number 4, position yourself as a learner. If you're not growing, you're dying. You have to have an internal locus of control. Look that up. Internal locus of control means that things are happening for you and not to you. Number 5, manage emotions and beliefs. This was massive. This is everything, I think. And he goes over just the core and then the onion rings on top of that. So it's known as the progressive muscle relaxation, PMR. So you intentionally release your muscle, you intentionally go muscle by muscle and release the tension in there. So you can see people on the train or waiting for something and they're sitting there rigid. And you feel it right now, it's in my back. It could be my forehead or my face, my chin. I'm feeling it in my legs. So you can actually feel where there's tension. And then muscle by muscle, you release that tension and you're like an amoeba, you're like a blob. And then honestly, you do that with deep breathing, you're done. It feels amazing. Check your intuition. So your brain is actually, this is extremely interesting. Your brain is not passively sitting behind and just waiting for things to come into its life, okay? Your brain is actually steps ahead of you, okay? Your brain is taking in everything right now, okay? Things that you don't even notice. It's literally in a constant state. So our conscious mind is thinking about, what am I doing right now? But our subconscious mind and our brain and other functions are worrying about the cells that are in our body that maybe have to be, I don't know, terminated, building cells, molecular function, obviously our heartbeat, our lungs, everything throughout our body that we have no control over. And our body's saying, our brain is miles ahead. When we're out in public, it's miles ahead. It's looking at everything as a whole picture, a whole movie, and it says, where do we need to put our attention? Ooh, danger over there. Ooh, that's fun over there. Ooh, that's exciting. Ha, ha, ha. Your brain is consistently steps ahead of you, and he leads it on, he goes on and he says, is your brain leading you or you leading your brain? David Goggins talks about that. And lastly, deliberate, then act. So this is something that I just read a book, which something about leaders. You can check out that book review. But essentially, he goes into, this is very interesting as well. Everything in this book is great. We think something happens, and then we act. Those that are most successful, happiest, and healthiest know there's a gap between the stimulus and your response. And it occurs hundreds of times a day. My alarm goes off, there's a gap. There's a gap. See, most people, they live their life. Alarm goes off, I snooze it. My alarm goes off again, I snooze it again. My alarm goes off, I reach for my phone. But this is really what happens is, my alarm goes off and there is a gap, regardless of how small it is, where you can make the decision that says, snooze my alarm, or do I go on my phone, or my phone's not even near my bed, I just get out of bed, okay? There is a response between what happens, bankruptcy, divorce, relationship breakup, not getting promoted, bad credit score, something, student loans, and then there's the gap. Okay, let's pay down the student loans month by month. Let's build up the credit score by ensuring that I'm paying those student loans on time. My relationship is over. Okay, how do I become a better person? Go to the gym, feed myself correctly, read, get better as an individual. Promotion didn't go my way. Okay, how do I either look for a new job or ensure that the next time it comes around, I'm that person, okay? Something happens, there's a gap. And that's essentially what agency is. You are an active participant in the response. You have no control over what happens. It's raining out, it's cold, it's whatever. That's what happened. Your gap is, I'm still gonna go for a run or I'm gonna stay in bed. Highly recommend you pick up this book. It's amazing. I put it at a 4.7 out of 5. I don't know if there will ever be a 5.5. The reason that, there was incredible parts. There's a couple basic parts, but overall, the book, I highlighted so much in the book. So if interested, click the link below. Obviously, a couple of pennies go into your boy's bank account to then fund some more video book reviews. Have an amazing day. If you guys have any questions, leave them